Newsroom on GB News, weekdays 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to GB News Saturday. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend out there. I'm Dawn Neeson for the next 3 hours, lucky you, keeping you company on telly, online and on digital radio. Keep up to date on all the stories that really matter to you. Now, coming up in this first cracking hour, has to be said, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has insisted footage showing a Reform campaigner making a series of very offensive remarks about Rishi Sunak was all a set-up. Then, first, it was Boris, then it was Rishi, now it's Prince Harry. Who's who in hot water with deleted messages? Oh, interesting. But why has the Duke of Sussex been put on the spot over his missing messages? And yes, football's back, come on. England will face Slovakia in the round of 16 of the Euros. Stay tuned to find out who England have to beat to become champions of Europe. But this show is nothing without you and your views. So let me know all your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today, or anything you want to chat about, basically. It's really easy. Just visit gbnews.com/your say and join the conversation. Or message me on our socials at GB News, but make sure you put a little kiss, eh? But first, it is the lovely Sophia Wensler with your news headlines.
Dawn, thank you. Good afternoon. It's 1 minute past 12. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Your headlines. A massive search for Jay Slater will get underway in Tenerife today, almost 2 weeks after the British teenager went missing. Spanish police called for specialist volunteers to take part in a new large-scale search as it enters its 13th day. It's after a friend of the missing teenager says he saw the 19-year-old slipping on rocks during a video call on the day that he vanished. In other news, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has insisted footage showing racist comments made by a campaigner was a set-up. Andrew Parker was seen making a series of offensive remarks about Rishi Sunak. He's now apologised but insists he was goaded into making them. Rishi Sunak condemned the racial slurs made against him and said it was part of a broader pattern of behaviour. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer will pledge to introduce a new Armed Forces Commissioner and lead a government of service if Labour is elected. It comes as Shadow Defence Secretary John Healey says Labour is now the natural party of defence. Mr Healey said his party will do better for soldiers and their families. Meanwhile, the Labour leader praised army personnel but refused to commit to a 2.5% defence spend.
We do want to get to 2.5%, and it's really important that that's consistent with fiscal rules. The first thing we'll do is carry out a strategic review of resources, of capability, to make sure that the money we are spending is spent effectively on the things that we need. But today is Armed Forces Day, so it is the opportunity to say thank you to all of those who are serving and have served, and to remember the contribution that they have made to our country.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister will hail the duty, dedication and selfless personal sacrifice of servicemen and women as he marks Armed Forces Day. Rishi Sunak will claim his is the only party to meet the Help for Heroes Veterans pledge. The pledge requires parties to commit to keeping the Office for Veterans Affairs, commissioning an independent review of the medical discharge process and ensuring veterans get the benefits and compensation they deserve. Security Minister Tom Tugendhat told GB News Armed Forces Day is more than just one day a year.
Armed Forces Day, for those of us who are veterans, isn't just one day a year. We live with our service, good and bad, throughout the year. And for some of us, that can bring back painful memories, but it can also bring back huge moments of pride of having served alongside some of the best that our country has to offer. Look at the record. Look at what Johnny Mercer has achieved as the Minister for Veterans Affairs, and look at what the Prime Minister has achieved in creating that cabinet position for Veterans Affairs. We've got Op Resolute and Op Courage that help veterans who may be finding life just a little bit difficult.
A new portrait of His Majesty the King in military uniform has been released to mark Armed Forces Day. In his new portrait, the King is wearing his Field Marshal No. 1 ceremonial frock coat with medals, sword and decorations. It comes as Queen Camilla gave a rare national statement praising servicemen and women in a message filmed in Clarence House's morning room.
In times of war and in times of peace, whether seen or unseen, our armed forces support and strengthen our nation. You're a source of inspiration, reassurance and pride, and I salute you all.
In the US, President Joe Biden says he intends to win the election in his first public event since his struggle during the first televised debate. He spoke at a rally in North Carolina where Democrats are hoping to win the state back from the Republicans this November. He claimed America itself is at stake and accused former US President Donald Trump of repeatedly lying and said he has the morals of an alley cat. But after Biden's own performance during the debate sparked concerns and calls for him to step down, he directly addressed the limits of his old age.
I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I know right from wrong. And I know how to do this job. I know how to get things done. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
Those are the latest GB News headlines. I'm Sophia Wensler. More in half an hour.
Thank you very much, Sophia. Now, let's get straight into today's story, shall we? Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has insisted footage showing racist comments made by a campaigner was a setup. Andrew Parker was seen making a series of offensive remarks about Rishi Sunak. He has now apologised but insists he was goaded into making them. Here's what the Reform leader has to say about what happened.
Someone told us he was an actor. We rang him this morning, the Daily Telegraph rang him this morning. He denied point blank that he was an actor. It turns out he is an actor. I found his website. He's a well-spoken actor who does something called rough speaking. Well, I was in the office when he arrived last Saturday, and he was doing rough speaking. It was an act right from the very start.
So you've met him?
I was working, and he came in and came up to me and said hello, and then he went out canvassing where the undercover filming took place. And he was rough speaking. He wasn't being himself from day one. I have to tell you, this whole thing is a complete and total setup.
Wow, strong words. Meanwhile, Rishi Sunak condemned the racial slurs made against him and said it was part of a broader pattern of behaviour. Let's have a listen to what he said.
When my two daughters have to see and hear Reform people who campaign for Nigel Farage calling me an effing it hurts and it makes me angry, and I think he has some questions to answer. When you see Reform candidates and campaigners seemingly using racist and misogynistic language and opinions, seemingly without challenge, I think it tells you something about the culture within the Reform Party. Our politics and country is better than that. It's my duty to call out this corrosive and divisive behaviour.
Ooh, wow. Right, OK. Well, joining me now is political commentator Matthew Stadlen, who's playing with our brand new shiny desk. and
I'm so impressed by it.
And journalist Claire Muldoon. Thank you very much for joining me on this lovely Saturday afternoon. We have a shiny new desk, and Matthew, being a boy, is actually fiddling with bits of it. Is it to your liking, Matthew?
I've really enjoyed it. I've been away for a week because we booked a family holiday before Rishi Sunak sprung this surprise election on us.
Oh, right,
So this is my first time in the studio, and I have to say it is excellent, because in the old days, it was just a straight table. We had to lean all the way. To do a debate, you had to, like, peer around the corner. And now we can see each other.
And now you can gaze into one another's eyes.
Yes.
At some point, hopefully. Now, this is a horrible mess. It's in all the papers today. What do we make of this? I mean, Matthew, you have been away, but I mean, nothing really changes.
No, you can't miss this. France isn't that far away. They do have the internet there. The issue here is...
Did you get back on a small boat, Matthew, or did they let you back in the country willingly?
We turned up at the airport at 5 o'clock French time yesterday evening. Our flight didn't take off till 11:30 p.m, which with a 1 3/4-year-old is quite challenging.
Ouch, yeah,
anyway,
absolutely.
On the Nigel Farage, Rishi Sunak story, I think there are various interesting things about this. First of all, the horrific comments that were made, which Farage has distanced himself from quite rightly, were just that. They were horrific. And every single person, I hope, watching this programme today would utterly condemn them. We don't want to be that sort of country, and I don't think we are that sort of country. Of course, you're going to get a few racists, but that's disgusting. I actually think that this plays potentially in Rishi Sunak's favour, which isn't to say that he wouldn't have been hurt and angry by these remarks, because they were appalling. But he's desperate to crawl back some votes that look like they will go towards Nigel Farage's Reform Party. And if he can paint Reform, at least in part, as a racist force, that may help him.
OK, Claire, I mean, to be fair to Nigel Farage, he acted swiftly. Unlike some of our other parties where people have misbehaved and they've thought, well, we'll wait a bit, make a decision. But Nigel Farage acted instantly.
With immediacy. And he absolutely said there's no platform for this in Reform. I thought those comments were absolutely abhorrent, he said, immediately. And I think that's not in defence of Nigel Farage nor the Reform Party. It's merely fact, OK? And then to find out subsequently that this might have been a manufactured event that has now taken place with an actor to be filmed. And I'm sorry, as Michael Portillo said yesterday, it's not just Reform that would have these ugly characters. And can you vet everyone? He said, when they were running for elections back in the 80s, it was very difficult to say no to a volunteer because you were so thankful for them. There are, however, other people who say that, yes, they should be vetted thoroughly. And yes, you know, we should, but we should also be able to take people who want to help at face value. And I think it's incredibly sad and very important at this time of the election that we've got reporting like this. You know, would we have got this on the BBC? Would we have got this on GB News? But Channel 4, you know, they've robustly come out and denied any wrongdoing, I have to say as well. And they stand by their production of the news segment that night. What damage has this done? Well, it's brought this again, this ugly head, this British nationalism, this racist tones, right back up to the future. The surface.
Do you think, Matthew? I mean, the Labour candidate for Nigel Farage, where he's campaigning, did say that drinking white tears was his favourite drink, which is also very racist. I don't remember being quite the fuss there was about that as there is about what's happened recently.
Well, I would not use those words myself, of course not, and there's no place, in my view, for that sort of comment. However, and there is a however, it's fantasy to suggest that people of colour have not had a far more difficult time in this country with racism than the overwhelmingly white majority of which we are part.
Racism is racism, surely.
Racism is racism. I've no time for any sort of racism. I don't think that this Labour candidate would have meant them in a racist way, but as I've said, I would totally distance myself from those remarks as you've just described them. I think there is a wider issue here, and I think it's important that we try and put our finger on it, or at least I will try to, and that is that as recently as October, and I was in the studio here at GB News reflecting on the Tory party conference and all the shenanigans going on around it, with Nigel Farage there dancing, sort of flirting with the Conservatives. And Rishi Sunak was asked about, effectively, whether Farage would have a place within the Tory party, and he refused to rule it out. He said that we are a broad church. That was when it suited him. Now, of course, it suits him to hammer Farage. And we have to remember, at least this is what I think, that Rishi Sunak has himself flirted with what I would describe as the hard right in this country when he thought it was in his electoral interest. And that is one of the reasons why I'm very passionate about getting rid of this Tory government.
Claire, it is interesting, since Nigel Farage came out with the controversial comments he made about Russia and the Ukraine, that the Tories have been more vocal on calling them out. I mean, the other week we had David Cameron saying it was dog whistle politics, and now we had an interview yesterday with Rishi Sunak literally having to go at Nigel Farage personally as well. So do you think that they, you know, maybe Matthew's right, maybe, you know, we can get in bed with them, but now they've seen a weakening of reform and they're going for them?
I think this stage in the campaign, 5 days before polling, it's definitely dog eat dog in the front pages, and Farage is still hitting the headlines. He's still pulling the punches. Whether the Conservatives or not actually form a legitimate, robust opposition when, in my view, Labour win on Thursday, is another. We've also got another disruptor in the Houses of Parliament at the moment, George Galloway. You know, he's now starting to make lots and lots of ripples within the Houses of Parliament. The only benefit of having George in there, I would say, is seeing the man without his hat on for a change.
Just a quick point to pick up on what you were talking about there, Claire, because you were talking about the headline.
Yeah.
This is the headline of the Daily Mail today. Boris, Britain can still swerve Starmageddon. Is that the headline of a newspaper or a campaigning leaflet? If Labour win this election, they will win it in the face of, in the teeth of, right-wing newspapers campaigning openly for the Tories, such as the Daily Mail.
To be fair, left-wing newspapers have done exactly
like the Daily Mail.
The other way around, the Daily Mail.
They don't have the power, do they? They don't have the force, and I'm not sure the Guardian is campaigning in the way that this is.
Well, the Mirror is.
And it's not the fault of the media in any case. We're not talking about what the media... Because I hate that. It's like, well, it's the mainstream media, it's the mainstream media. No, it isn't. This is our politicians that are doing this. They're the ones that are responsible for the mess.
But that goes back to Channel 4 reporting this, because they're part of the mainstream media. It's the sources that we need to be able to trust. It's the robustness of the journalism that we need to be able to...
You make the point about robust journalism, and it's very important. The Daily Mail, which is one of the most influential papers...
You're working for them by any chance. Other newspapers are available.
OK, but the Daily Mail, which is one of the most widely acknowledged influential newspapers in our country, the left are terrified of the Mail. You might argue that the BBC, at some stages, has been terrified of the Daily. They are in bed with the former Prime Minister, with Boris Johnson, who was the Prime Minister last time we went to the polls.
But Matthew, we all know that it's not going to make a jot of difference.
Do we?
Do you actually believe the Conservatives can win on Thursday?
I've been thinking really hard about this week, analytically, because, as you know, I want Labour to win. I wonder whether a hung parliament is almost as likely as a so-called Labour supermajority. I don't think this election is done yet.
Which is interesting, because you're not the only one to say that. A lot of people have said that. And, you know, that paper you've been raving about all morning so far does have an 8-page tactical voting guide, as the papers on the other side.
To get the Tories in and avoid Starmageddon.
Starmageddon. To be fair, that's a good word in a headline. Come on.
It's not robust journalism, is it?
Well, I mean, you know...
A tactical voting guide, guys.
If you wave that once more, I'm going to slap you. In a nice,
it's on your desk.
Yeah, well, I know.
It's not on yours, so leave it.
Yes, exactly. All the other papers are here, by the way. But, I mean, do you think Nigel, going back to the point of this particular debate, I mean, Nigel Farage was also on BBC One Question Time talking about impartial media, mainstream media. Do you think he was given a fair crack of the whip last night, Claire?
I didn't watch it, so I can't fully comment.
You were out having a life, I mean, come on. Who'd have thought?
A GB life. But, you know, it is staggering, because there are some politicians that do get an easier ride than others.
Can I come back on that very quickly? As I saw some of the clips, and I saw some of the sort of anti-Farage feeling in the room, and you see you hear the applause. I think it's important.
He didn't get any applause. There wasn't a single
applause against him. And I think there are 2 points to make. One is that although Reform, they say they want to get about 6 million votes, that is still a relatively small proportion of the overall vote. And BBC audiences have to reflect, don't they, roughly what the polls are saying. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you hear applause, and you particularly hear passionate applause. Not everyone was applauding when he was being criticised. So it's important to remember that.
OK, and do you think, I mean, sort of like, you know, as you say, I mean, to shift the dial, it will take an awful lot. I mean, Nigel Farage's comments about...
But it's also the turnout. Dawn, I don't think a lot of people will turn out to vote.
Well, except that now that Reform exists, I think, because we have a cyclical political system. When I was growing up, I had 18 years of Conservatives. Then we had 13 years of Labour. Now we've had 14 years largely of Tories with a bit of Lib Demery thrown in there at the beginning. There is a massive, I think, appetite for change. I don't think there's a huge enthusiasm for Starmer or Labour, if I'm honest. The turnout thing is interesting. Because there is Reform, people feel, I think wrongly, that they can go out and vote for Reform rather than staying behind, as many did in 1997. I think what Blair did was convince enough Tories that they didn't need to vote Tory and therefore that they stayed at home. This time round, a lot of those people feel that they actually can exercise a vote, can actually get out there and be positive as they see it, rather than staying at home and going and putting in their X in the box for Reform. That may help turnout, is all I'm saying.
Do you think?
Well, it might do, but there's an awful lot of politically homeless, disenfranchised people out here in Great Britain. A lot of them will go to Reform. And, yeah, I think a vote for Reform is not necessarily a vote for Farage or what the manifesto was that was written in the back of a fag packet, but it's a vote against the Conservatives.
And I think it's a dangerous vote, but I think it might help Labour.
Well, we shall see. We haven't got long to wait now, because it has been a long wait, hasn't it? Claire Muldoon and Matthew Stadlen, thank you very much.
You're very welcome, thank you.
Thank you. Now, responding to Mr Farage's claims, a spokesman for Channel 4 said, "We strongly stand by our rigorous and duly impartial journalism, which speaks for itself. We met Mr Parker for the first time at Reform UK's headquarters, where he was a Reform Party canvasser. We did not pay the Reform Party canvasser or anyone else in this report. Mr Parker was not known to Channel 4 News and was filmed covertly in an undercover operation." OK, and now we have to, because we have mentioned this particular constituency, Clacton, we have to mention the other people standing. So we have Yovan Osula, Nepal, Labour Party, Giles Watling, Conservative, Matthew Bensalem, Liberal Democrats, Nigel Farage, Reform, Natasha Osborne, Green Party, Craig Jameson, Climate Party, Tony Mack, Independent, Tassos Papanescu, Heritage Party, Andrew Pemberton, UKIP. Gosh, thank God there's no more of them standing. We'll be here all day.
We've only got 5 days left.
Oh, shush, right. For all of the best analysis, even better than Matthew's and Claire, and your opinion on that story, go to our website, which is at gbnews.com. Now, let's cheer ourselves up, shall we? It's time for the Great British Giveaway, a brand new one, and it's a biggie. It really is. The chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash. It's our biggest prize today, and here's how you could win it.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For a chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Oh, good luck indeed. Yeah, what a summer you could have with that, eh? I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News Saturday, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. First it was Boris, then it was Rishi, now it's Prince Harry who's having trouble with deleted messages. Stay tuned to find out why the Duke of Sussex has been put on the spot over his missing messages. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't you dare go too far.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
So there was a calf that was run down by a Surrey police car. It's now being nursed back to health, according to the family who own the farm that the calf escaped from.
Well, he didn't just run him over once, he ran him over twice.
No, we're not showing you the footage. The footage is really shocking. But the police officer who was driving this vehicle has now been taken off frontline duties until a full investigation is completed. And I feel like I'm yet again the only person in the country who thinks the police officer was just doing his job. That police officer, probably a young guy who's got dual carriageways left, right and centre in that area. Do you know what the most popular business is in that area in Feltham?
Farming.
McDonald's drive-through. It's got a queue round the block anytime you go around that area. And all those people queuing for McDonald's who are now outraged that this poor cow had to die.
Because it's going to be at McDonald's at some point.
At some point he was going to die. I'm really sorry. If you eat meat, you can't be upset by a cow dying. I think the fast roads with cars at 10 o'clock at night in the dark, they're not expecting a cow to walk out in the middle of the night. There would have been a massive pile-up. Then there'd been, like, who knows how many people dead. And then the police would have been criticised for not neutralising the threat.
The thing is, it was because he did... why... You could see the first time, the calf could barely stand up. I just don't get why I had to then go and do it a second time.
Well, I suppose at that point it's a bit like if you run over like a deer on the side of the road, you know, and if the police they're going to kill the animal to put it out of its misery. That's all I can presume. And the guy's not trained. This is Feltham. It isn't Texas. He's not going to come out with a lasso. He doesn't know what to do.
Where did this happen? Feltham.
Feltham. I'm sure the inbox is now going to be full of people saying, "Bev, you're outrageous. You lack compassion."
No, there will be people who agree with you. But if it had been done once, that was enough. But I don't think it needed to do it the second time.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Isabel Webster. Thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's Trick Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is... Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tominey.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This election night, we're putting on a party.
And you are invited.
We'll be here with you.
Following all the twists and turns.
As well as all the live reaction from our election night watch party.
With our GB News lineup.
And as morning breaks, we'll be here with breakfast from 6 a.m.
As it becomes clear who the winners and the losers really are.
Vote 2024.
Thursday, the 4th of July.
Only on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to GB News Saturday with me, Dawn Neeson, on your telly, online and on digital radio. Now, loads of you have been getting in touch straight away, which is brilliant. Absolutely love it. In particular, regarding Nigel. Lots of sympathy for Nigel, and I'm not mentioning the C word again, otherwise I have to read that candidate list out. Channel 4, this is from Caroline, Channel 4 is listed as a British state-owned media company which raises questions about the state being involved. She's not convinced what we see is what we get on the with this story. And let me see. Meanwhile, Marilyn says, could someone at GB News ask Channel 4 exactly why they were doing undercover filming featuring Reform, digging up dirt on making dirt happen? Well, Channel 4 aren't here to defend themselves, and they have denied that there is anything untoward going on, and it was fair journalism. But lots of sympathy coming in for Nigel Farage and the Reform Party there. So keep sending your thoughts in, though. Now, on that story, and all of them, by the way, I've remembered this, so I'm going to read it out now. gbnews.com/your say, hey, and join the conversation or message me on our socials at GB News. Now, the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, Chris Heaton-Harris, has launched the Northern Ireland Conservative Manifesto today. He says that the Conservative Party want Northern Ireland to remain a full and integral part of the Union. Joining me now is GB News Northern Ireland reporter Dougie Beattie to explain what's going on. Hi, Dougie. Thank you for joining us. Dougie, right, manifesto launched today, so what are we expecting?
Well, there wasn't much in the manifesto launch itself because we're only 3 working days out from the actual poll. And as you say, he's very keen to point out that the Conservatives do stand candidates here because they really do see Northern Ireland as a very integral part of the UK. But that has not always been the way in Northern Ireland, because we, of course, have parties here that are very closely linked, sister parties, if you like, with other parties. So, I mean, you had Enoch Powell in his last days, his last MP. The last time he visited Westminster was as a Conservative and Unionist candidate, and he stood in South Down. So, really, they only get about 0.03% of the vote in Northern Ireland. They are only standing in 5 constituencies, and it was bizarre because I have questioned Chris Heaton-Harris on many occasions, and he's talking about a fiscal floor. They're talking about the 3.3 billion that was brought here. But of course, he was on the opposite side of the table from Northern Ireland politicians when they were trying to get that very deal through. So it was very hard to understand as a journalist looking at Chris Heaton-Harris launching this manifesto. And to be fair to him, he did do quite a good job of explaining what they were looking for in Northern Ireland, and the 5 candidates that are standing and the constituencies that they're standing in and their hopes for those constituencies were right at the forefront of that manifesto. But we have, even with the Labour Party in Northern Ireland, we have the SDLP, the Social Democratic and Labour Party. The Alliance Party is very closely linked with the Lib Dems, and now we have the TUV, the sister party of them being Reform UK. So it is a bit strange why on earth they have actually decided to do this 3 days from the vote, but they have done it, and it said a lot and said very little.
Dougie, thank you very much. There's an awful lot of that about. It has to be said. That's Dougie Beattie in Northern Ireland. Thank you very much. Now, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News Saturday. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend out there, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. But first, it's time for the news headlines again with Sophia.
Dawn, thank you. It's 12:31. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Your headlines. A massive search for Jay Slater will get underway in Tenerife today, almost 2 weeks after the British teenager went missing. Spanish police called for specialist volunteers to take part in a new large-scale search as it enters its 13th day. It's after a friend of the missing teenager says he saw the 19-year-old slipping on rocks during a video call on the day he vanished. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has insisted footage showing racist comments made by a campaigner was a set-up. Andrew Parker was seen making a series of offensive remarks about Rishi Sunak. He's now apologised but insisted he was goaded into making them. Rishi Sunak condemned the racial slurs made against him and said it was part of a broader pattern of behaviour. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer will pledge to introduce a new Armed Forces Commissioner and lead a government of service if Labour is to win the election. It comes as Shadow Defence Secretary John Healey says Labour is now the natural party of defence. Mr Healey said his party will do better for soldiers and their families. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister will hail the duty, dedication and selfless personal sacrifice of servicemen and women as he marks Armed Forces Day. Rishi Sunak will claim his is the only party to meet the Help for Heroes Veterans Pledge. The pledge requires parties to commit to keeping the Office for Veterans Affairs, commissioning an independent review of medical discharge process and ensuring veterans get the benefits and compensation they deserve. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, I'm Sophia Wensler. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sophia. And those emails are still coming in, by the way. Many of you saying that Nigel Farage is a much better politician than Rishi Sunak. So keep them coming in. Remember, let me know all your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing, not just that one, by visiting gbnews.com/yoursay and join the conversation. Or message me on our socials at GB News. And there's loads more coming up on today's show. And I will be reading much more of your emails out as well. England will face Slovakia in round 60, the last 16 of the Euro 24, and can now map out their route all the way through to the final. And it might at some point involve Germany on penalties. Stay tuned to find out who England have to beat to become champions of Europe. All of that and much more to come. I'm Dawn Neeson and you're with GB News, Britain's news channel. Now don't go too far because there's loads more coming up.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Well, this weekend offers some sunshine for most of us, but there will be a little bit of rain at times. Main area rain, all courtesy of this fairly weak area of low pressure. It's going to push some cloud and some outbreaks of rain across parts of northern England and Wales this afternoon. That may well spread into the Midlands at times, but either side, plenty of sunshine around. Exception to far north of Scotland here, still quite blustery with some showers coming and going, but in the sunshine across the southeast especially, feeling fairly warm, highs reaching around 24 or 25 degrees. Heading into this evening, and very little changes really across parts of Scotland. We continue this north-south split, so across the more northern parts of the country here we continue with some blustery showers, but for many eastern and southern parts of Scotland a fine end to the day. Very similar story for Northern Ireland, and may well start to cheer up a little bit for Northumberland and Cumbria, but elsewhere across northern England, the far north of Wales, a rather grey end to the day, but to the south of it plenty of sunshine to end Saturday, but just the risk of maybe the odd shower just moving into parts of Kent. For the rest of the evening and night, this area of cloud and rain will continue to slowly work its way southeastwards, weakening as it does so. Either side, some clear skies, but still some blustery showers across the far north of Scotland. And under the clear skies, a fairly fresh night, temperatures falling down to about 10 or 11 degrees, but under the cloud, not much lower than around 15 or 16 degrees. So a bit of a grey start for some southern areas on Sunday, risk of a few spots of rain, but for a lot of us, Sunday offers plenty of dry weather, a mixture of some sunshine and also some cloud. But with a northwesterly flow, feeling a little bit cooler, temperatures at their highest in the south reaching around 21 or 22 degrees.
This election night, we're putting on a party.
And you are invited.
We'll be here with you.
Following all the twists and turns.
As well as all the live reaction from our election night watch party.
With our GB News lineup.
And as morning breaks, we'll be here with breakfast from 6 a.m.
As it becomes clear who the winners and the losers really are.
Vote 2024.
Thursday, the 4th of July.
Only on GB News.
Britain's election channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family. Simply go to gbnews.com/yoursay.
Hello, welcome back to GB News Saturday with me, Dawn Neeson, on your telly, online and on digital radio. Hope you're having a smashing weekend out there. Now, I said smashing because we've been talking about tennis with the wonderful Ada McGee, who is here, mainly to talk about football, though. So, despite only one win in their group, and they dragged that one out, England finished in top spot, securing them a place on what's considered the more favourable side of the knockout draw in Euro 24. But what is their route to winning the whole tournament, and what are their chances in the coming matches? Oh, God. Make this nice and positive, Aidan. Go.
Well, look, you'd have to say, Dawn, that it's true, England do have the more favourable side of the draw,
Yes.
as they've had in recent tournaments, to be fair. But sooner or later, you're going to have to beat a really top side, and that's what England have struggled to do. I mean, notwithstanding Germany in Euro 2020, which was played a year later in 2021, I mean, knockout wins against top 6 stellar opposition are few and far between. Now, if Switzerland were to... Switzerland are playing Italy tonight. If Italy win that and England wins tomorrow, well, that's Italy in the quarterfinals. I mean, how is that an easy draw when Italy are the holders? Yeah. And Italy have got pedigree. They won the World Cup twice in my lifetime. They're always producing decent players. They're hard to break down. So there is no easy side of the draw.
We have some of the best players in the world playing for England.
So we keep being told. But we were told that in 2006 with David Beckham and Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard and Rooney and everybody else. We were told that just the same in Euro 2008, which we didn't even qualify for, and in World Cup 2010. Sooner or later, instead of picking arguments with the media, which Harry Kane seemed to do earlier in the week, and in actual fact all they did was go on the pitch and prove Gavin Lineker and Alan Shearer to be absolutely right. Sooner or later you have to beat somebody you have to prove that you're the team to beat. You are the team to beat on the pitch.
You can only play what's in front of you, can't you? That's what you've got to do. Just beat the team that's in front of you.
Now,
it doesn't matter.
In terms of the changes he can make, I think it's a huge risk bringing in Luke Shaw if that's what he's going to do. But you know what? I think Gareth Southgate might do that because he's justifying the strategy in the first place. Otherwise, if he's bringing a player he's not going to use, then everyone will say, well, what's the point of that? You could have brought Tyreek Mitchell from Crystal Palace, who is a recognised left-back who was fit and had a decent second half of last season. One thing I would say, though, Dawn, you can't please everybody. When you're the England manager, you must be tying up in knots. I mean, I know he has all year round to think about these tournaments and everything, but goodness me, you can't do right for doing wrong.
Actually pleasing anybody, though, is it? I mean, you know, I obviously I don't like having knocking people, but I mean, you watch England. I mean, I'm used to watching West Ham. I'm used to this, but you watch England play, and it's incredibly frustrating. Not just for the fans there, hence the beer chucking we had, the fans watching at home, and also, you suspect, given some of the interviews they've given, for the players.
But you know what's... You're sounding negative, I'm sounding negative.
Yeah, we are.
You know who else is sounding negative? Priscilla the tortoise from London Zoo.
Yeah, you're obsessed with this tortoise.
So we have a look. Shall we have a look
at a picture of the
Here we
tortoise?
go.
Right, OK.
Now, I've got some history with this. Not with this tortoise. I mean, it looks like a giant tortoise, so I think it's because the camera is zoning in on or zooming in.
To be fair, she's moving faster.
There's the England flag on the on the left. There's a Slovakia flag on the right.
Right, OK.
And she has gone for Slovakia. Now, in my previous job, you know what I used to do? It's my job to go to Whipsnade Zoo every tournament and watch a lion come out of a box. Or come out of a den, obviously, and pick the box. And we used to cheat by putting some meat underneath the England flag, so the lion chose the box every time. Now, the issue I had was that, yes, the lion would always go for that box, but it took ages for the lion to be drawn out of the den, and I had to gem up on my lion knowledge. All Siberian lions that I could possibly dream of were in my head, all their length and all their dimensions, everything like that. And I had to talk and talk and talk until I had no more knowledge left. And then, as I was about to hand back, because I was going to say, well, look, you have to come back later, he appeared, and they said, unbelievable, he's backed England to beat Panama, which we probably could have told him anyway. We won 6-0 in the end.
You've just given the tricks of the trade away. Come on.
In my previous job, that is. We would never do that at GB News.
Tabloid editors got I got an entire career out of dodgy animals predicting various football results on the front page.
Well, there's Paul the Octopus. You remember Paul the Octopus?
The Octopus, yeah. I think we had some chickens at one point.
Did you? That was hard to control.
I think so. Well, why wouldn't you have chickens?
Yeah.
And we need to Ben Stokes. We need to mention as well.
Yeah, well, we mentioned just then about the pressure on the players, and he has a unique perspective because he's been England captain in cricket for a number of years now. He's also had struggles with mental health. But just before we go any further, let's hear what he had to say first of all about the pressure that England players are under.
Unfortunately, it's just the way that sort of, I guess, the English mentality is, you know, their team gets through to a knockout stages and we're getting a load of grief. So, interesting, yeah. I mean, I know what it's like. But I guess that comes from expectation and everyone wanting their team to do well. But yeah, let's just believe, eh?
Now, he's been in the front line, Dawn, for many years now, so I'm not, you know, he's coming in from a good place, he's got experience, but I just think that elite-level sport, pressure is something you have to deal with. There's pressure on Italy, there's pressure on France, Brazil, when it's a World Cup, and every other country that we can think of that's used to winning trophies or thinks they should be winning trophies in our case. And I just think you've got to suck it up. I mean, you don't get anything by picking fights with the media, do you? It's a fight you can't win.
No, exactly that. Yeah, don't even try it. Otherwise, I'll set the tortoise on you as well. Oh, you and your tortoise, honestly.
I know.
So, I mean, if we win, and it is a fairly big if, I mean, we should do on paper, but unfortunately we're playing on grass, as the old saying goes. We could come up against Italy.
Yes.
And then if we beat Italy, we could come up against...
Austria look most likely
at
the moment, and they're not a...
But they won the group, didn't they, Austria?
They did. They've been outstanding so far, and they've got Ralf Rangnick, who was ridiculed at Manchester United 2 years ago, and he's gone back into international management. He's taken one or two players that he had at Man United, like Sabitzer, for example, and turned him into a world beater, although he did show promise at United as well.
There's the flow chart.
Yes, exactly. And then if we got to the final, there's any pick of those sides on the left-hand side.
Yeah, I've written some rude words on my chart at home, by the way,
Denmark are playing Germany this evening as well, which I think is either 5 o'clock or 8 o'clock, I'm not actually sure. But nonetheless, that's a repeat of the final of Euro 92, but I think Germany will be, as the home nation, will be too strong for them.
Yeah, I'm still in therapy after Euros 96, but I'm that old. And you've seen the picture as well.
I have indeed.
We're not going there. The tortoise is better. Aidan McGee, thank you very much.
Good to see you, Dawn.
Yeah, thank you. Right, OK, well, I am Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News Saturday, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. First it was Boris, then it was Rishi, now it's Prince Harry, who's having trouble with deleted messages. Stay with us to find out why the Duke of Sussex has been put on the spot over missing messages. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't you dare go too far. We've got more tortoises, possibly.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
So, question is, what can we do to get young people to eat healthy food? Here's dietitian and nutrition consultant Helen Bond. Helen, what do you think?
Eating habits formed at this age tend to persist into later life. We know we're eating too much fat, sugar, salt, and not enough of the good things like fibre, fruits and vegetables, all of those things. So, yes, we need to help this age group so they have the skill set and they have the nutrition knowledge to take that forward.
Do you agree that it is impossible to eat healthily on a budget and quickly as well? Or do you have any sort of fail-safe, affordable and very quick to prep meals that you'd recommend youngsters try?
It doesn't have to be expensive either, but you have to have those kind of cost-cutting hacks and those time-saving things in the kitchen. Make use, I always say, of things like peas, beans and lentils, which are a type of pulse, very inexpensive compared to meat, and yet they double up as one of your 5 a day, and also a great source of plant-based protein. If you overget milk as something, you have too much milk, maybe make some lattes.
I just wanted to throw a shoe at the TV, really, because was there nothing else on or nothing else available? The point being, there is an audience, there's obviously an appeal, there's obviously people are watching this stuff. So what are they doing? Are they watching and not cooking?
I think that's it. They're watching and maybe enjoying all the cookery programmes like I do. And I'm a typical person in the kitchen. I must have about 100 cookbooks. But sometimes when you are time poor, you've got to feed a family or you've got to feed yourself and everything, you don't really know where to start. And I think that's why apps and having things online for this younger audience makes it much more accessible. Start with one recipe and build it up from there. Like I said,
The People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's Trick Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is... Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tormini.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This election night, we're putting on a party.
And you are invited.
We'll be here with you.
Following all the twists and turns.
As well as all the live reaction from our election night watch party.
With our GB News lineup.
And as morning breaks, we'll be here with breakfast from 6 a.m.
As it becomes clear who the winners and the losers really are.
Vote 2024.
Thursday, the 4th of July.
Only on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News, and we're on your telly, online, and on digital radio. Now, Prince Harry, we have to talk about him still, don't we? He's hit another speed bump in the courts. Well, he does insist on hanging around them. The Duke of Sussex has been ordered by a High Court judge to explain why messages which might be relevant to his legal case against the publisher of the Sun newspaper have been deleted. Curious, happens a lot. Joining me now is historian and broadcaster Rafe Hayden-Manku to explain Harry and the missing messages. I mean, you could actually get a book out of this one.
Yes, there will.
He will, won't he?
This relates to the case he's brought against the News Group newspapers, which owns The Sun, and against which he's claiming used unlawful tactics and private investigators to obtain information about him. And in this quite remarkable statement, the judge has said that there is, quote, troubling evidence that Prince Harry's messages to the ghostwriter of his book, Spare, were deleted between 2020 and 2023, despite the fact that this lawsuit against The Sun had already been launched and the messages there could have been relevant to the case. And now, when you have a case like this, there's something called discovery, where you are obliged to present all of your documentary evidence to the other side, even if it is damaging towards you. So why were these messages deleted? The claim of the Sun newspapers group is simply that in Spare, Prince Harry makes certain statements which make it seem as if he had suspicions about phone hacking and so forth prior to 2013. And that's relevant because he launched this case in 2019, and there's a 6-year time limit. So if he actually had these suspicions before 2013, then that would mean that this case could be thrown out of court. So the judge has basically said this is very concerning, and he wants Harry to go try to get his messages out of storage in the Signal secure WhatsApp group, and he's asked the lawyers to go through all of his email accounts, his laptops and everything else. But they're saying, oh, everything that he had before 2013 mysteriously has disappeared. There's no data at all. No mobile phones, no laptops, no social media.
No, because we didn't have them then, did we? I wonder where he picked that one up from. Well, I think we've heard that from politicians, haven't we? Oh, God, all those WhatsApp messages. No, lost the phone type thing. But let's have a happy story as well, shall we? Portrait of King Charles to mark Armed Forces Day.
Yes, so, of course, on the last Saturday in June every year is Armed Forces Day, a chance for us all to celebrate our armed forces. The King, of course, Commander-in-Chief.
You see it on the screen now.
And there's this lovely picture of His Majesty in his Field Marshal No. 1 frock coat uniform, full ceremonial, with all of his orders and medals. Interestingly, for the second time in a row, he has opted to wear the sash of the Royal Victorian Order, whereas when you wear the collar of the Order of the Garter, which you can see, you normally wear the Order of the Thistle, which is the second highest ranked honour. And I've asked a very senior member of the royal household about this, and they were also perplexed. So we're not quite sure. Anyway, that's for anoraks who care about such things. It's quite interesting.
That's probably quite interesting, actually.
This photograph was taken in November, which was the same time we had the official photograph taken, which you may remember was in January, also at Windsor Castle, with His Majesty in his Admiral of the Fleet uniform.
And before he was diagnosed with cancer as well, wasn't it, if I remember rightly? And I have to talk about my favourite royal. Team girl, Princess Anne, out of hospital after the horse incident, as the palace described it.
Yes.
Made it sound much more interesting than it was.
Well, there's some good news, at least. After 5 nights in hospital, Her Royal Highness has now returned to Gatcombe Park, her home. She left away from the media glare, so she left quietly, and she's going to undergo a period of recuperation now. So she won't be undertaking public duties for the foreseeable future. How long she needs to recover, it depends on the type of concussion she has, because there are different types of concussion. We don't have any of that information. but Her Royal Highness was supposed to be going to Canada actually now.
Oh, wow.
And unfortunately that's been put onto the back burner. And so, you know, the King was supposed to go to Canada in May, has also cancelled his trip to New Zealand. She won't be going. So, you know, she did warn us about the perils of a slimmed-down monarchy last year in an interview with CBC. And, you know, with the absence of the Princess Royal and the King only doing part-time work, she's now out of action. Don't have Harry and Meghan or Andrew. So the monarchy, at least temporarily, is back down to very, very slim numbers.
Sophie's quite reliable, though. Like Sophie as well, a bit of a team girl. She's always there, isn't she? Working hard. Working hard. I got told off for saying royals work hard the other day. It's like they just go and cut ribbons here and there, don't they?
Well,
I wouldn't want to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Rafe Helderman-Koo, bringing us up to date on the royals. Now, we're running out of time. Oh, God. No, I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News Saturday, and there's lots more coming up on today's show. But first, I think, well, it's important. It's the weekend. Come on. It's time to find out what the weather is going to be doing. And here's Craig with all your details. And if he doesn't mention the word hot and sunny, you can shout at him, because I'm going to. Here's Craig.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Over the coming days, the weather is going to be a little bit mixed. Some of us will see some rain, but most of us should see some sunshine from time to time. So as we end Saturday, we've still got this weak area of low pressure to the west of the UK. That will continue to bring in some cloud and rain across parts of northern England and Wales. That will slowly work its way southeastwards as we go through the course of the night. Either side, plenty of clear skies, but still the risk of some blustery showers across the far north of Scotland. Under the clear skies, temperatures falling down to about 10 or 11 degrees for most of us, but under the cloud cover, not much lower than around 15 or 16 degrees. So a bit of a grey start across many southern parts of the UK. This cloud will be thick enough at times to produce the odd spot of rain, but as the morning goes on, it will gradually begin to break up and turn drier. But the best of the sunshine first thing will be across parts of Wales into the Midlands, northern England, where further north across Northern Ireland and Scotland we'll see a mixture of some sunshine and also a few showers. Most frequent showers will be probably across Shetland and Orkney, where still there'll be a fairly keen wind. As we go through the course of Sunday, most of us actually should see some plenty of dry weather, a mixture of cloud and some sunshine. The cloud tended to bubble up during the middle of the day before easing away again as we head into the latter part of the afternoon. Best of the sunshine probably down towards the southwest, but with this northwesterly flow, it will feel a little bit cooler than it has been on Saturday. Highest temperatures in the south reaching around 21 or 22 degrees. Very little changes as we end the weekend, a fairly fine end to Sunday, but you can see this next area of rain just beginning to move in across the west, and that will give a fairly wet start for some to the new working week, but generally plenty of dry weather to be had, especially in the south.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Thank you very much, Craig. He did mention hot and sunny, didn't he, at one point, briefly? Well, it is a British summer. What are we expecting? OK, well, there's lots more coming up on today's show, so stay tuned to find out why this is everyone's favourite story, apart from when I don't understand it, why 2 NASA astronauts are stuck in space and how they might get down. We actually have models. It's Blue Peter all over again. All that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. We bring you tortoises and models. Don't go too far.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For a chance to win £30,000 £30,000 in tax-free cash? Text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
The mystery surrounding the disappearance of flight MH370 has perplexed the planet now for 10 years. But now all of a sudden researchers at Cardiff University have piped up and said, oh, we heard a beep. Aerospace engineer, founder of MH370search.com is Richard Godfrey. Richard, are we going to find this thing?
The new research is much more thorough and gone in much more detail. It is picking up acoustic waves under the water. It's not conclusive, but it's a good step forward.
Is this a cover-up job of epic proportions? Do you think something quite sinister happened to this plane? Because it is all very odd.
I think you're right. It is all very odd. It is. We have a lot of data, but we don't have the final analysis, and we won't until we actually find the wreckage. The Indian Ocean is a huge place, 77 million square kilometers. When we find the plane, we can recover the flight data recorder, the cockpit voice recorder. We can learn a lot more.
Do you think someone might have shot it down?
No, the plane flew until it ran out of fuel. The plane was perfectly in working order. There was an active pilot right until the end. So my only theory at the moment is the captain of the plane actually committed a hijack of his own plane. But until we find it, we won't be able to prove that.
We are potentially a step closer now to knowing and to one of the greatest mysteries of recent times anyway, finally being solved. As aerospace engineer there, Richard Godfrey, thank you.
Britain's election channel, the People's Channel.
Hello, welcome to GB News Saturday. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend out there. I'm Dawn Neeson. For the next 2 hours, we're keeping you company on telly, online and digital radio, keeping you up to date on the stories that really matter to you. And we've got a cracking hour coming up for you. Now, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has insisted footage showing a Reform campaigner making a series of offensive remarks about Rishi Sunak was all a set-up. Then police in Tenerife are calling for specialist volunteers to take part in a new large-scale search for British teenager Jay Slater. We'll bring you the very latest on that story. And coming up later on the show, find out why 2 NASA astronauts are stuck in space. And we have models to show you exactly what's going on as well. It's very exciting. Right, but this show is nothing without you and your views. So let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today by visiting gbnews.com/your say. See, I can do it. And join the conversation or message me on our socials. We're at GB News. But first, it's those news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Dawn, thank you. Good afternoon. It's 1 minute past 1. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. Your top story this hour. A massive search for Jay Slater is getting underway in Tenerife today, almost 2 weeks after the British teenager went missing. Spanish police called for specialist volunteers to take part in the new large-scale search as it enters its 13th day. It's after a friend of the missing teenager says he saw the 19-year-old slipping on rocks during a video call on the day that he vanished. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has insisted footage showing racist comments made by a campaigner was a set-up. Andrew Parker was seen making a series of offensive remarks about Rishi Sunak. He's now apologised but insists he was goaded into making them. Rishi Sunak condemned the racial slurs made against him and said it was part of a broader pattern of behaviour.
He was acting from the very start. This is a total and utter set-up.
Meanwhile, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer will pledge to introduce a new Armed Forces Commissioner and lead a government of service if Labour is elected. It comes as Shadow Defence Secretary John Healey says Labour is now the natural party of defence. Mr Healey said his party will do better for soldiers and their families. Meanwhile, the Labour leader praised army personnel but refused to commit to a 2.5% defence spend.
We do want to get to 2.5%, and it's really important that that's consistent with fiscal rules. The first thing we'll do is carry out a strategic review of resources, of capability, to make sure that the money we are spending is spent effectively on the things that we need. But today is Armed Forces Day, so it is the opportunity to say thank you to all of those who are serving and have served, and to remember the contribution that they have made to our country.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister will hail the duty, dedication and selfless personal sacrifice of servicemen and women as he marks Armed Forces Day. Rishi Sunak will claim his is the only party to help meet the Help for Heroes Veterans Pledge. The pledge requires parties to commit to keeping the Office for Veterans Affairs, commissioning an independent review of medical discharge process and ensuring veterans get the benefits and compensations they deserve. Security Minister Tom Tugendhat told GB News Armed Forces Day is more than just one day a year.
Armed Forces Day, for those of us who are veterans, isn't just one day a year. We live with our service, good and bad, throughout the year. And for some of us, that can bring back painful memories, but it can also bring back huge moments of pride of having served alongside some of the best that our country has to offer. Look at the record. Look at what Johnny Mercer has achieved as the Minister for Veterans Affairs, and look at what the Prime Minister has achieved in creating that cabinet position for Veterans Affairs. We've got Op Resolute and Op Courage that help veterans who may be finding life just a little bit difficult.
And a new portrait of His Majesty the King in military uniform has been released to mark Armed Forces Day. In his new portrait, the King is wearing his Field Marshal No. 1 ceremonial frock coat with medals, sword and decorations. It comes as Queen Camilla gave a rare national statement praising servicemen and women in a message filmed in Clarence House's morning room.
In times of war and in times of peace, whether seen or unseen, our armed forces support and strengthen our nation. You're a source of inspiration, reassurance and pride, and I salute you all.
In the US, President Joe Biden says he intends to win the election amid calls for him to step down following his performance in the debate. He spoke at a rally in North Carolina where Democrats are hoping to win the state back from Republicans this November. He claimed America itself is at stake and accused former US President Donald Trump of repeatedly lying and said he has the morals of an alley cat. And a man has died and 7 are ill after taking a potentially contaminated dose of sleeping pills. Cleveland police said the man was thought to have taken medication from a possibly compromised batch of Zopiclone. It said 7 other people who were believed to have taken the pills have been taken to North Tees General Hospital in Stockton-on-Tees on Friday. Police are urging anyone with information to contact them. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sophia. Now let's get straight into today's story, shall we? Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has insisted footage showing racist comments made by a campaigner was a setup. Andrew Parker was seen making a series of offensive remarks about Rishi Sunak. He has now apologised but insists he was goaded into making them. Here's what the Reform leader had to say about this event.
Someone told us he was an actor. We rang him this morning, the Daily Telegraph rang him this morning. He denied point blank that he was an actor. It turns out he is an actor. I found his website. He's a well-spoken actor who does something called rough speaking. Well, I was in the office when he arrived last Saturday, and he was doing rough speaking. It was an act right from the very start.
So you'd met him?
I was working, and he came in and came up to me and said hello, and then he went out canvassing where the undercover filming took place. And he was rough speaking. He wasn't being himself. from day one. I have to tell you, this whole thing is a complete and total setup.
And lots of you agree with that, by the way. Now, Rishi Sunak condemned the racial slurs made against him and said it was part of a broader pattern of behaviour. Here's what he had to say. Oh, no, we don't have that clip. No. OK, right, joining me now is a GB News host of the Saturday 5, Albie Amakona, and former Labour Minister for Europe, Dennis McShane. Now, lots and lots of people have been getting in touch about the Channel 4 situation and what Nigel Farage has had to say about the chap potentially being an actor. What do you make of this, Albie?
I don't really care what Nigel Farage has to say about it. I care what GB News' very own Charlie Peters has to say about it. And Charlie Peters spoke to this man who made these horribly racist comments about Rishi Sunak, and this man said it's complete rubbish, this idea that he was hired as an actor by Channel 4, straight from the horse's mouth. That is what he has said. Now, Nigel has come out very strongly and said and condemned these comments, but I really don't like this idea that he's trying to fob off responsibility for what is actually ultimately the responsibility of the Reform Party, the types of people that go out campaigning for them, the types of people that are members. We don't know whether or not this man is a member, but if you lay down with dogs, you get fleas. And what the Reform Party should do, rather than peddling conspiracy theories, is just say it's wrong, say he's been kicked out of the party, say anyone that does this is going to be dealt with in the strongest possible terms, and get on with it.
So you think Nigel was wrong to say we have looked into this and the chap's an actor, even though surely it's natural to want to defend yourself, because they were pretty vile comments.
They were vile comments, but I don't think he should be trying to peddle conspiracy theories, and that's what it is, a conspiracy theory, that this man was hired by some organisation in order to make the Reform Party look bad. I think that's nonsense. I spend a lot of time defending Nigel and the Reform Party, my friends in the Reform Party, and what I don't like is when that defence is thrown back in my face by them trying to say this entire thing is some sort of establishment stitch-up conspiracy theory to make the Reform Party look bad. They're making themselves look bad.
OK, Dennis, what do you think? I mean, do you think Nigel should have just, you know, got rid of... I mean, to be fair, he acted very fast. He said, right, OK, this person is gone. We didn't know, nothing to do with us. Do you think he should have then gone down the but we think he might be an actor line?
It's utterly daft, and you only have to turn to The Spectator, which is quite a right-wing weekly paper, very well written. It has got 2 pages, I can read them all out.
Please don't.
I won't. Of unbelievable Reform Party candidate statements. Now, I've got to be very careful because we mustn't mention constituencies, mustn't mention names. No, I know the rules. I used to be a BBC producer on election days. But for example, here's one.
Try not to mention any names.
No, I'm not going to mention any names. Well, I'm going to mention one.
Oh, God.
This guy says, a Reform man says, I've actually met Putin, had a 10-minute chat with him. He seemed very good. He's not the Austrian gentleman with the moustache come alive again. Another one saying that he would like to shoot any of the asylum seekers arriving here by boat.
But I mean, the problem...
And there's so many of them. I mean, if it's one or two...
But, look, I mean, it's my job here to be impartial,
yes.
But we have had this with pretty much every party, haven't we? We've had Labour with anti-Semitism. We have had some choice comments coming from the Conservative Party.
I don't recall any of them calling the Prime Minister the F word, P word.
No, but we have had comments. I mean, look, I'm not arguing that. That is an appalling comment to make, and I completely understand why Rishi Sunak was incredibly upset, especially for his little girls over that one. But, I mean, it also, you know, we have had sort of like, you know, the Labour representative saying that, you know, his favourite drink was white man's tears. I mean, that's fairly offensive, surely.
It's hugely offensive, and I think Nigel was absolutely right to call that out when he was interviewed by Channel 4 the day after. As I said, I think Nigel has actually condemned the comments very strongly. What I don't like are the people in Reform trying to peddle some conspiracy theory that this is some establishment stitch-up and it was all set up. Why can't they just accept that there might be some wrong-uns in their party, like there are in every party, and deal with them?
It would be acceptable were it not for the fact that Nigel has adopted the continental European right-wing love affair with Vladimir Putin, and his statements on Ukraine are wholly unacceptable in any British citizen's judgment, in my view. And this is the difficulty. But also, Rishi Sunak's very upset, saying his children were upset. Did he say anything about Frank Hester when he referred to Diane Abbott making him feel physically sick, or pay back the money he's given the Tories?
There are bad uns and good uns.
Well,
in
Rishi
every
Sunak's the
party.
Prime Minister. He's not meant to be a bad un.
Well, I didn't say he was a bad un.
No.
I said there are good and bad in all the parties. And, you know, lots of people would agree with what Nigel Farage said about the Ukraine situation. But that's what this channel does. We debate.
Yes,
and we
no,
discuss.
very fair.
There's no no-go areas, OK. But responding to Mr Farage's claims, a spokesperson for Channel 4 said, "We strongly stand by our rigorous and duly impartial journalism, which speaks for itself. We met Mr Parker for the first time at Reform UK's headquarters, where he was a Reform Party canvasser. We did not pay the Reform UK canvasser or anyone else in this report. Mr Parker was not known to Channel 4 News and was filmed covertly via the undercover operation." OK, so, I mean, that is their statement. Now, because we have mentioned the C word again, I have to read the candidates out for the Clacton constituency. And if you're listening on your radio, this is why we do it. On TV, you can just say, here's the list. On radio, we have to read them out as well. So we have Jovan Osiwu, Nepal, Labour, Giles Watling, Conservative, Matthew Bensalem, Liberal Democrats, Nigel Farage, Reform, Natasha Obson, Green Party, Craig Jameson, Climate Party, Tony Mack, Independent, Tessos Fascinucci, sorry, mangled that one, Heritage Party, and Andrew Pemberton for UKIP. Right, OK, we're not mentioning that anymore. Now, I want to talk about another big story this week, which is basically we have Doctor Who taking on Harry Potter, or rather Kemi Badenoch taking on, what's his...
David Tennant.
David Tennant, thank you so much. Honestly, this story is not going away either. So now, I'm going to come to you first on this one, Dennis. Don't mention any constituencies. You don't have to. What do you make of this? I mean, Kemi Badenoch is very upset about this because basically she was told, you know, David Tennant said, I wish you didn't exist and you should shut up. Any woman's going to be upset by that, surely.
Absolutely right. And Diane Abbott was very upset when the big Tory donor said he wished she didn't exist. But did anybody defend her?
I did.
You did. But did Rishi Sunak or
Kemi
any Tory?
Badenoch did.
Good for Kemi. Good for Kemi on that. So of course she's right. And frankly, I love actors, but we've lived with them all our lives. Scornfully, we call them lovies, which is very unfair because some of them are very, very lovely people. And yes, sometimes they shoot off, and it works well perhaps in the bars in the Garrick Club to which they belong, just as no doubt all these reform candidates talking about Hitler and Putin and Jews and immigrants and immigrants and immigrants and immigrants play well in their golf club 19th hole bars. I don't know. But it's nothing to do with democratic politics. And I just wish David Tennant had buttoned his lip, just as I wish Frank Hester had.
This is the question, isn't it? I mean, sort of like, I personally, as a woman, found what he said. I mean, you know, and David Tennant said, I don't wish ill of her, I just want her to shut up. This was an acceptance speech that he was giving for being an award for celebrity supporting LGBTQ plus awards. And further, he went, it's just a bunch of whining, rude words that are on the wrong side of history and they'll all go away soon. Well, ignoring the fact they could be talking about 51% of the population here, or women, as we call them. What you know, should maybe, certainly during the election campaign, actors just shut up, do your job.
Well, J.K. Rowling hasn't shut up, and I'm sure there are lots of people who agree with J.K. Rowling's position on this. There might be lots of people who agree with David Tennant's position on this. I don't agree with David Tennant's position on this. I don't think it's ever acceptable to be rude to people and to tell them to shut up and wish that they didn't exist when you're expressing your opinion. Now, there are different opinions on this trans and gender ideology debate, and I think they've got to be discussed in a proper, reasonable and evidence-based way, rather than either side telling each other to shut up. We're never going to find a happy way through this, which I think we can find, if we're telling each other to shut up.
Why is the rhetoric, though? I mean, sort of like, you know, I accept that, as you point out, J.K. Rowling has expressed an opinion on this, and, you know, we all have political opinions no matter what we do for a living, whether you're an actor or music is the other side. We're seeing it with Glastonbury as well, aren't we, this weekend? But, I mean, why is the rhetoric? I mean, you know, we wake up and Kemi Badenoch doesn't exist anymore. I just want her to shut up. I mean, that's not exactly, well, I disagree with her, but there's a debate to be had about this subject, is there?
Quite. I think that's absolutely right. But I wish Kemi Badenoch would stop weaponising the sensitive problem for some people, a small number of people who are transitioning and feel they're born in the wrong body. And I think the hate campaign against people who are going through that very difficult transition has been one of the most shaming things in British politics in the last few years. The nonsense about, does a woman have a penis? I mean, that's simply...
But that started because people claimed that women could have penises.
No,
and people claimed that you could change biological sex. I think it's very easy to say...
You're going right into...
I think it's very easy to say, oh, it's the right-wingers that started this cultural debate. Well, no, it's not. People started claiming that you could change biological sex, and people said, hold on a minute, no, you can't. And then it all began. So I think both sides are as vulnerable to this as the other. And I don't like it when we say it's one side versus the other.
You make that allegation, but straight away... I mean, there was a period, I remember coming on GBNews, where it was something to do with Starmer and women and penises and so on. It was just absolutely smear, 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 just as the left smear, smear, smear. And Kemi Badenoch is a senior cabinet minister. She shouldn't be indulging in that.
Give me an example, though, Dennis, of something that Kemi has said that is actually transphobic.
I'm not going to go into any kind of charge sheet. I don't have any strong views on it. I can say a lot of things about other things she said and done, taking part...
But you basically her being transphobic.
No, I said that there's a lot of right-wing people who are using it to try and create tensions. I'm guided by my children, who are mothers, young mothers now, and they just see it in terms of tolerance. And all the politicians do is just exude either arrogant self-righteousness that I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, or intolerance, intolerance, intolerance.
But maybe Kemi is just asking for tolerance for women and their rights, though.
She is. And I think what's quite interesting about this, Dennis, I don't know if you were in the House of Commons at the time, but actually the Gender Recognition Act, where people could legally change gender, passed in 2004 without any controversy whatsoever. A lot of Conservatives voted for it. The Conservatives did not repeal the Equality Act, which actually tidies up a lot of the issues that we talk about now. So we're having this conversation as if actually this issue isn't already settled in legislation and it tackles a lot of the problems that we talk about now. And I just don't really understand why it's become such a thing. And I think it's become such a thing since people wanted to start imposing self-ID. This was not remotely controversial before campaigners started pushing for self-ID. It was a settled issue. No one cared about it. As soon as it was self-ID is what we want, otherwise we're all bigots, then it became an issue.
Well, because I'm older than everybody around this table, I remember indeed when our beloved judges sent 57,000 British men to prison because they self-ID'd as gay. And then we did change lots of laws, and it's just been generally weaponised. I don't quite know why somebody as intelligent as Kemi Badenoch has been running with it, and all this nonsense. And he says, Starmer says women don't have penises, as if that shuts the debate down. That is, I think...
Do women have penises, Dennis?
What?
Do women have penises?
Of course they don't. But that is one reason why I think the Tories are going to take a huge hammering in a very short while. They've gone off-piste into their own little areas of obsession, and that's not where the British public are. They just want jobs, healthcare, housing, above all, children's care, and it's not been delivered in recent years.
Right, OK, unfortunately, we're running out of time, but that was a cracker, wasn't it? Right, OK, thank you, Albie Amakona and Dennis McShane. Fiery debate there. Trying to guess who you're supporting is a bit
Oh my God! I'm so sorry. No! I put it on the Daily Mail. There we are. So I'm so sorry.
All the best analysis and opinion on that story.
Oh dear!
God,
oh dear!
I'm gonna get rid of this paper. Sorry, and more. You can go to the website gbnews.com. Now it's time if you want to escape, and I don't blame you in the slightest. It's been a long haul up to this election. It's time for the Great British Giveaway, and it's a big one. The chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash. It's our biggest prize today, and here's how you could win it.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For a chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. That's a cracking prize, isn't it? Now, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News Saturday, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. Police in Tenerife are calling for specialist volunteers to take part in a new large-scale search for British teenager Jay Slater. We'll bring you the very latest on that. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News Channel's Britain's news channel, and don't you dare go too far because we have space and model coming up.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
History lecturers at the University of Liverpool have been advised to problematise whiteness and heterosexuality in their seminars. They are saying that you should be guilty if you're white and heterosexual. Not using the long words they use, but that's kind of what they're saying.
Yeah, but do you know what? History in this country is concerned with more and has been lived by more white people and more heterosexuals, right? And that's the history. I'll tell you something else, Dawn. This is Russell Group University material here. This is Liverpool. It's a really good university. Mm-hmm. The thing that really got me going apart from this, and I thought it was an AI generation of words input into a system to come up with from something. It's ridiculous. The main issue I have is the verb problematise. I've never heard of that before. Yeah. So they should be prioritising grammar. Let's get first principles back in there firstly.
It's just promoting anti-racism.
It's not, Amy.
It is, wait. It's just bringing the marginalised voices into the discussion. So,
no, what they're saying is look at British history through the optic of...
all perspectives. So let's look at it from the perspective of a queer person growing up. Let's look at it from the perspective of somebody from...
But that's not the majority.
When I actually looked at the evidence, it's all about unpacking bias. And you have to admit there has been a white bias in history.
No, there hasn't, because the facts...
From a white perspective...
Amy, the facts are, in history, most people in this country are white and heterosexual.
Of course, but then there's still...
So that's the history.
...voices that deserve to be brought into the discussion as much as the dominant...
Look,
like, that's all decolonising the curriculum is hearing all sides of the argument.
I think...
Surely we at GB News love. We celebrate that. That's what we do.
We do, but we're not telling anybody it's bad to be white or it's bad to be...
Exactly.
That is not what...
Amy, it is. It is.
The People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
This election night, we're putting on a party.
And you are invited.
We'll be here with you.
Following all the twists and turns.
As well as all the live reaction from our election night watch party.
With our GB News lineup.
And as morning breaks, we'll be here with breakfast from 6 a.m.
As it becomes clear who the winners and the losers really are.
Vote 2024.
Thursday, the 4th of July.
Only on GB News.
Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to GB News Saturday with me, Dawn Neeson, on your telly, online and on digital radio. Now, this is the most intriguing story we've had for a while, isn't it? Police in Tenerife are calling for specialist volunteers to take part in a new large-scale search for a British teenager. Jay Slater went missing 13 days ago, and police have been scouring CCTV footage for his last known movements. The Spanish Civil Guard began their latest at 9 o'clock local time this morning in the village of Masca. It's the most mysterious story, and there's new threads developing every day. So I'm pleased to say joining me now is former head of Lambeth Missing Persons Unit, Mike Neville. Mike, thank you very much for coming in. We had a chat before about this. But again, there's more lines coming out. Front page of the Daily Mirror today. Missing Brit, new clue. I could hear Jay slipping on rocks. He's been missing for 2 weeks.
Yes, I mean, first we've got to look at the terrain. You're looking for literally a needle in a haystack. It's not, with Michael Moser, there have been comparisons drawn to the island there. The island there was very rocky and barren. This is rocky and absolutely covered in vegetation. It's a much bigger area and very, very difficult to search. So with all these things, you look at 3 things. Firstly, has somebody gone missing because they want to disappear? Well, when you look at the parents and the family, that doesn't seem to apply here. The second thing is, has somebody been the victim of crime? Have they been kidnapped or taken away? And there's all sorts of theories and social medias are awash with conspiracies. But again, the evidence for that theory is very little. Now, if there is something, and people have been publishing about Jay's involvement in the courts and stuff, it involves all sorts of complex conspiracies that, you know, different friends are giving different evidence and putting people down the wrong track. But the third thing is that if somebody's gone missing and they've hurt themselves and they can't get home. And this seems to be the premise that the Spanish police are working on, and they've been working on this for several days, searching the area, because we had the tracking device on his phone say, pinging, that he's in this park. The second thing, we had his friend Lucy saying, he rang her up saying, I've got 1% on the battery, I've hurt myself, I need a drink. And then, oddly, after a few days, got his friend Brad coming forward saying, well, I had a video call, I could see him slipping on rocks. Now, you could say, how is it taken so long for him to come forward? But this is a teenager who's probably going to several parties, you know, living 2 days in one. The only TV you see when you're away is what the latest soccer match is on, and he's involved in, he's having a drink or whatever, and maybe he's missed it all, but it does seem odd that he's taken his time. But there could be reasons.
This is a young lad called Brad Hargreaves, who it's a front page Mirror, was on a video chat with Jay, who was walking home after that night. I knew he went off the road. I could hear, like, when you walk on gravel, and I heard him slipping. But it's, as you say, when kids certainly are on holiday, you know, they're not keeping in touch with the news. But we were talking to someone out in Tenerife the other day, and they were saying it's curious that a lot of the youngsters that need to be spoken to, going to the clubs that might have met Jay, haven't been spoken to.
Yeah, I think in a way the Spanish police have been a reasonable job, but they seem to have underestimated the vastness of this search. And now we have, of course, at 9 o'clock Spanish time this morning, they asked for all sorts of volunteers with expertise in that area because they've realised it can't go on. And I suppose if you were an official, if you're a government official on Tenerife, your livelihood on that island depends on the tourist industry. So they have to come to some conclusion here. Now, we can only hope that Jay is found, a hermit has taken him in and he's been looking at... Wouldn't that be the wonderful thing? His parents would be pleased. Sadly, this amount of time, I think the best they're looking for is a body. It is sad to say that, but he went out. He'd obviously had drink, possibly some substances. He was in clothing which is not suitable really for a hot day, nor is it suitable for a freezing night. And Andy said allegedly that he'd injured himself. So let's hope for the family there is some form of conclusion here.
But in your experience, and you have got a lot of experience in missing persons, when someone is missing for this length of time in this terrain, it's possibly not going to be the best.
It's a very sad thing to say, and no one wants to break that news. No doubt the family have got... The Lancashire Police, I think, are supplying a family liaison officer who'll be keeping them up to date. But we can only hope there's some form of conclusion to this.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. I was just going to move on to that. It's like, obviously, the worst case scenario is that we never know. And we do know that people go missing and we never know what happened to them.
Well, the worst thing, I suppose, is it's near the sea, because if somebody goes in the sea, then the sea is a cruel place. It can be swept out to all different places. Whereas if you look into the Nicola Bulley case, where you have a river, you know, it's likely if somebody goes in the water, it usually takes about 3 weeks for them to emerge because of the way the body works and decomposes. But if you go into the sea, it's sort of, we saw about the airline, the airliner which has vanished. If you can't find an airliner in the sea, how do you find one body? But it's a long way down to there. So let's hope something is found with all this extra searching capacity, because it's all right putting helicopters and drones up if you're looking on a barren landscape. Yeah. But if there's tree cover, then anything can be underneath it.
Indeed. As I said, as you said, Mike, all we can hope is that there is a happy-ish outcome at some point. Thank you very much. Mike Neville, former head of Lambeth Missing Persons Unit. And as I said, thoughts with Jay's family and friends at this time. Now, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News Saturday, and there's lots more coming up on today's show. But first, it is time for the news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Dawn, thank you. It's 1:32. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Your headlines. A massive search for Jay Slater is underway in Tenerife today, almost 2 weeks after the British teenager went missing. Spanish police called for specialist volunteers to take part in the new large-scale search as it enters its 13th day. It's after a friend of the missing teenager says he saw the 19-year-old slipping on rocks during a video call on the day that he vanished. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has insisted footage showing racist comments made by a campaigner was a set-up. Andrew Parker was seen making a series of offensive remarks about Rishi Sunak. He's now apologised but insists he was goaded into making them. Rishi Sunak condemned the racial slurs made against him and said it was part of a broader pattern of behaviour. Meanwhile, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer will pledge to introduce a new Armed Forces Commissioner and lead a government of service if Labour is elected. It comes as Shadow Defence Secretary John Healey says Labour is now the natural party of defence. Mr Healey said his party will do better by soldiers and their families. And the Prime Minister will hail the duty, dedication and selfless personal sacrifice of servicemen and women as he marks Armed Forces Day. Rishi Sunak will claim this is the only party to meet the Help for Heroes Veterans Pledge. The pledge requires parties to commit to keeping the Office for Veterans Affairs, commissioning an independent review of medical discharge process and ensuring veterans get the benefits and compensation they deserve. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, I'm Sophia Wensler. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sophia. Remember, let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today by visiting gbnews.com/yoursay and join the conversation, or message me on our socials. We're at GB News, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. So stay tuned to find out why 2 NASA astronauts are stuck in space and how they might get down. Oh, God, I've seen this film. It doesn't end well. All of that and much more to come. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't go too far. We have space and models to come.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Well, this weekend offers some sunshine for most of us, but there will be a little bit of rain at times. Main area rain, all courtesy of this fairly weak area of low pressure. It's going to push some cloud and some outbreaks of rain across parts of northern England and Wales this afternoon. That may well spread into the Midlands at times, but either side, plenty of sunshine around. Exceptions to far north of Scotland here, still quite blustery with some showers coming and going, but in the sunshine across the southeast especially, feeling fairly warm, highs reaching around 24 or 25 degrees. Heading into this evening, and very little changes really across parts of Scotland. We continue this north-south split, so across the more northern parts of the country here we continue with some blustery showers. But for many eastern and southern parts of Scotland, a fine end to the day. Very similar story for Northern Ireland, and may well start to cheer up a little bit for Northumberland and Cumbria. But elsewhere across northern England, the far north of Wales, a rather grey end to the day. But to the south of it, plenty of sunshine to end Saturday, but just the risk of maybe the odd shower just moving into parts of Kent. For the rest of the evening and night, this area of cloud and rain will continue to slowly work its way southeastwards, weakening as it does so. Either side, some clear skies, but still some blustery showers across the far north of Scotland. And under the clear skies, a fairly fresh night, temperatures falling down to about 10 or 11 degrees. But under the cloud, not much lower than around 15 or 16 degrees. So a bit of a grey start for some southern areas on Sunday, risk of a few spots of rain. But for a lot of us, Sunday offers plenty of dry weather, a mixture of some sunshine and also some cloud. But with a northwesterly flow, feeling a little bit cooler, temperatures at their highest in the south, reaching around 21 or 22 degrees.
Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's Trick Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is... Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tominey.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family. Simply go to gbnews.com/your say.
Welcome back to GB News Saturday with me, Dawn Neeson, on your telly, online and on digital radio. Now, it's almost like a scene from a horror film or a really, really scary sci-fi film. Think Alien. 2 astronauts are stuck in space. This week, NASA announced that the craft due to bring them back to Earth had 5 helium leaks, 5 dead manoeuvring thrusters and a propellant valve that failed to close completely. I've studied this, I know what I'm talking about. So the 2 astronauts are currently stranded on the International Space Station waiting for a ride home. Uber don't go out there, I don't think, do they? Well, they'd charge, wouldn't they? Joining me now is space expert Andy Lound, who has models. I feel like I'm in Blue Peter. It was always a childhood thing to do, Blue Peter. Andy, thank you so much for coming in. Now, you might have guessed, given our conversation at the break, where I'm referring to Doctor Who, Lost in Space and Alien, that I am clueless about the science of this. So explain to me and the readers in baby steps what's going on.
Yeah, so what's happened is NASA contracted 2 companies to build spacecraft to ferry astronauts to the space station. The famous one, of course, is Dragon, which goes into space, which is SpaceX's vehicle, which got to the story first. They got there first. And the next one is Boeing's Starliner.
Right.
Now, this is the one which is being tested at the moment.
Right.
So it was a launch on June the 5th as a test flight with 2 astronauts. And the idea was to test all the systems out, to dock with the space station, then run a series of checks and then bring it back again. The problem has been it took extra time to dock with the space station because you have manoeuvring thrusters. Now, on black on the side of this.
Just hold it up a little bit higher so we can see it above the... Yeah, that's right.
I made them black, which is where they would be. Now, these allow the vehicle to slow down when it's docking with something or to manoeuvre. 5 of 28 thrusters failed, so they had to abort the docking while they tried to sort it out. Got systems working again, although 1 thruster completely failed. Managed to dock. They've got helium leaks. Now, helium on the spacecraft is used to pressurise the fuel. Because there's no gravity...
That doesn't sound good.
Because there's no gravity, you've got to pressurise the fuel to get it to flow through. So you use helium for that. But there's helium leaks on it. However, the helium leaks have stabilised, which means they're not losing too much, and there will be enough on board to bring them back. They were trying to figure out why the thrusters have failed. That's quite a critical element to it. However, they're doing ground tests at the moment with a similar spacecraft to find out what the problem is. And the problem appears to be a software issue, not a mechanical issue.
Right.
Now, that's not so bad because then they can do something. But the spacecraft is still rated to come back in an emergency. Because the heat shield is fine, they can come back and manoeuvre for an emergency. So they're not stranded in the sense that they're stuck, they're just stranded in the sense they're going to have to be there a lot longer while they run the tests. But this was a test flight to test this spacecraft out to make sure it works. That's the nature of the game.
Right. So there's two of them that are meant to be coming back in it, but they can't come back just yet.
Not immediately, no. If there's a major emergency on the space station, they could come back. Or there's still a Dragon spacecraft docked, and that can hold 7 passengers.
Right.
So it could bring everybody back from the space that's up there at the moment in safety. So it's not a threat in that sense.
Right.
But
how many people are there actually up there now?
I think there's about 5 to 7 people up there at the moment.
Right, OK, so they haven't got to draw straws.
So they don't have to draw straws. There's enough backup to get everybody back quite safely. Because there's a Soyuz vehicle backed up there for the Russian cosmonauts, which are up there, so they can come back down safely. So there's plenty of safety up there. There's a bigger story. It's just simply the fact that the vehicle is going through its checks, and it means there's going to be a lot of changes when it gets back to get this thing fully up and running. And that is an issue for Boeing, because, of course, Boeing, with a big contractor to do these things, SpaceX, the new kids on the block, got there first and are fully operational. But as we know, Elon Musk pushes the boat out and gets things done very quickly. It's
the fact that it is all moving so quickly. Is there a danger that it's moving too quickly and we are maybe putting people's lives at risk because we are in a rush? As you say, it's a space race all over again, isn't it?
To a certain degree it is with China, but you've made a good point there, but the answer is no, they're not pushing it. And if you look at the way SpaceX, for instance, test their vehicles, just had the 4th test of their super rocket. The previous 3 failed, but they were improvements on each one. So they do step-by-step improvements. And until they get to a stage where the vehicle is really good and will come back on its own, then they'll put crew on board. And that's what's actually happened with this. An unmanned version of this couldn't dock with the space station because there were failures on board. And they brought it back. Again, nearly a year of testing, altering, changing it before they actually put a crew up there. So you do it on step-by-step process. And until something works, you don't fly them up. I would say the Apollo programme was probably more of a risky step at certain times than they're doing at the moment.
How long would this, if it was working perfectly, how long would it take to get back down?
Oh, once they've actually got it up, I mean, it was only supposed to be up there for 10 days and then bring it back. That was a 10-day mission, but it looks like they're going to be there for a month now.
Wow.
But there's plenty of work for them to do because they can do other checks on the spacecraft itself. There was an issue also with coolant with the water, but they've refilled the tanks now on that, so they should be OK.
So they've got enough supplies as well?
Plenty, yes. They're perfectly safe. It's just... This is the nature of testing, I'm afraid, to get it right.
There's no monsters, it's not alien, is it?
I'm afraid there's nothing like that up there, I'm afraid. That's a shame, but there we go, it's life.
Oh, thank you very much for coming in, Andy, and making that as simple as and cool. Do you make them yourself?
That was a kit. I locked this one up last night, one I made earlier.
Wow,
thanks
it
to
really
Valerie
is.
Singleton's lessons paid well.
It really is Blue Peter. Andy Land, space expert, thank you very much. And looking very Doctor Who, can I say that as well? You can. Very dapper. Thank you very much, Andy, and for having a good sense of humour as well and talking to an idiot like me about space. I am an idiot, and I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News Saturday, and there's lots more coming up on today's show. It is Armed Forces Day, and we'll be seeing how one community is celebrating the wonderful servicemen and women in our country. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel, and I'm just going to go and play with these models now. Don't go too far, use lot.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Recent polling suggests dentistry has become the hardest NHS service for patients to access, within NHS treatments still 15% lower than pre-pandemic levels. So a YouGov survey reveals that more than 70% of Brits describe seeing the dentist as difficult, compared with 64% for GPs and 42% for A&E services. One British man, get this, he even took to flying 10,000 miles for dental care, saying the extra time and money spent was far less hassle than trying to get an appointment on the NHS. I mean, it's a sad state of affairs. And a shocking 1/5 of UK adults have also admitted to trying DIY dentistry, including the old trick of tying string around a wobbly tooth and slamming it in the door so it comes out. So should people be more careful when taking their teeth into their own hands?
That is one of the problems. Obviously, population growth makes it much more difficult for people to access NHS services, but they need to then catch up on the other side with dental services and increase the amount of dentists and access to dentistry, and especially NHS dentistry, obviously.
What's the cut-off age for free dentistry on the NHS?
So it is 18 years old, but there are exemptions around maternity, pregnancy. There's some free care around pregnancy.
We saw some data a few weeks back about the number one cause for child admission into A&E is tooth decay. I mean, that was shocking when I read it.
It's really bad, and what happens is people, kids with multiple decayed teeth, they basically have to be put under general anaesthetic, and then all those rotted teeth have to be extracted under general anaesthetic. Like, if those baby teeth start going crooked, then the adult teeth start going crooked as well. So it is important to look after the baby teeth. It's really important. I think they should make it more central to their policies, definitely.
The People's Channel.
This election night, we're putting on a party.
And you are invited.
We'll be here with you.
Following all the twists and turns.
As well as all the live reaction from our election night watch party.
With our GB News lineup.
And as morning breaks, we'll be here with breakfast from 6 a.m.
As it becomes clear who the winners and the losers really are.
Vote 2024.
Thursday, the 4th of July.
Only on GB News.
Britain's election channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
This election night, we're putting on a party.
And you are invited.
We'll be here with you.
Following all the twists and turns.
As well as all the live reaction from our election night watch party.
With our GB News lineup.
And as morning breaks, we'll be here with breakfast from 6 a.m.
As it becomes clear who the winners and the losers really are.
Vote 2024.
Thursday, the 4th of July.
Only on GB News.
Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to GB News Saturday with me, Dawn Neeson, on your telly, online and on digital radio. Now, today is Armed Forces Day, a day which aims to encourage the public to show their support for the Armed Forces family of servicemen and women, veterans, cadets and their families for the contribution they make to the life of the nation. Joining me now is GB News reporter Ray Addison to bring us up to speed on what the day is all about. Ray, thank you so much for joining us. What is happening today? What is it actually all about?
Well, as you know, Dawn, earlier on, we were seeing an event which was taking place in central London. That was the 13 Bridges Challenge, organised by the Armed Forces charity, and that saw around 1,000 people starting off by Tower Bridge, making their way through to Chelsea Bridge, raising money for people who are currently serving, veterans, people who are in cadets, those in need, and just showing, as you said in the introduction there, support for the Armed Forces community. We've travelled now to West Sussex, to East Grinstead, to see a smaller scale event, but no less well supported. This is local people here organising an event featuring local cadets, current and former members of the military, and a chance to see military vehicles, displays, and a memorial service has also been held to mark the start of this event. And actually, I'm joined now by the organiser. It's Squadron Leader Simon Allen of the RAF Air Cadets. Thanks so much for joining us. What can you tell us about today, and why did you decide to organise it?
Well, it's been going ever since Armed Forces Day started, and we've organised it to support our veterans, cadets and serving members of the Armed Forces. We don't have that many Armed Forces around us, so but we're lucky we've got the hospital and they have some regular forces there who come down, and some of them are here today. And it's just about supporting the Forces family, really, of which I'm part.
Just looking behind you, it's visually very, very interesting. We can obviously see some vehicles. Talk us just through what we've got, who's turned up and who's taking part.
Okay, so the Southern military vehicles, that's the 3 Land Rovers over there, the Sea Cadets with their boats. You can see some Air Cadets there, they've done a drill display for us earlier. Out the back we've got the Scouts, we've got the British Legion, RAFA are here. Just about everybody who's anything to do with the armed forces here. The Deputy Lieutenant's here. She's about somewhere. I don't know where at the moment, but she's here as well.
So obviously you're the organiser of this, and I know you've served in the RAF, and now you're playing a very, very important role with the Air Cadets as well. Why is that important, and why has the military been such an important part of your life?
Well, it's something I joined when I was 16. Before that I was a cadet. When I left it, I came back to the cadets so I could give something back. And I think it's important for the youth to have something to, get engaged with. It's something completely different. It's not something everybody does. It's not something everybody enjoys, but it's quite a varied thing. So I think it's important. It gives them life chances that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise.
And you mentioned, just quickly, because we're running out of time, but you mentioned to me before we went on air that it seems to you that there's less of this type of event being organised around the country. Why do you think that is, and what can we do to try and increase the support in the military?
It's hard to say. We were having a discussion earlier, and there does seem to be less of these. This year seems to be bigger for us, so maybe we're bucking the trend. But yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you why, to be honest. It's maybe people don't want to join their forces anymore. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Squadron Leader Alan, thanks very much for joining us. Really do appreciate it. Well, as you've seen there, a really vital event being very, very well supported by this local community. There's a car park just off-site. It's absolutely full, and we're going to have a good look and see what's going on here today.
That's brilliant. What a lovely report. Ray Addison, thank you so much for bringing us that. And even more emotive this year, obviously coming straight after the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Now, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News Saturday, and there's lots more. I'm just distracted by a message saying that I'm not that stupid. I am. In any case, here's the weather with Craig, and it better be good. Go on, Craig.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Over the coming days, the weather is going to be a little bit mixed. Some of us will see some rain, but most of us should see some sunshine from time to time. So as we end Saturday, we've still got this weak area of low pressure to the west of the UK. That will continue to bring in some cloud and rain across parts of northern England and Wales. That will slowly work its way southeastwards as we go through the course of the night. Either side, plenty of clear skies, but still the risk of some blustery showers across the far north of Scotland. Under the clear skies, temperatures falling down to about 10 or 11 degrees for most of us, but under the cloud cover, not much lower than around 15 or 16 degrees. So a bit of a grey start across many southern parts of the UK. This cloud will be thick enough at times to produce the odd spot of rain, but as the morning goes on, it will gradually begin to break up and turn drier. But the best of the sunshine first thing will be across parts of Wales into the Midlands, northern England, where further north across Northern Ireland and Scotland we'll see a mixture of some sunshine and also a few showers. Most frequent showers will be probably